That's what they all look for. Welcome, folks. Dropping the Hook Live. I've got a couple of guests with us here tonight. Ray Briggs and Alan Moore. Welcome, guys. We got a big show coming up on a Friday night. It's a little different than normal. Most of the time we're on the weekends, Friday and Saturday, or Saturday night. But this weekend, the Silk Hope Truck and Tractor Pull at Silk Hope Farm Heritage Park. That's right there in Siler City. You're not going to miss it. That's a big extravaganza. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. They've got pulling. Carolina Pullers will be there Friday night. They'll have antique pulling starting at 6 o'clock on Saturday night. That's a whole day worth of fun. Have you guys ever been to that? That's a whole complete show showing how the old school way of farming and all that kind of stuff. That's rather interesting to go check out.
Never been to the show, been to the pool several times, but no, never the show.
Well, I tell you, yeah, well, let's start off with you, Alan. You've been kind of, we talked to DJ Saturday in Winston-Salem, and I want to talk to you because DJ's actually finally got his first win, but Alan, you have been literally knocking on the door. You've had several second place hooks, but just haven't quite pulled off the win. I got to give you dibs on it, man, because y'all have really worked with the Hoss pulling team, and you guys have done an excellent job bringing that tractor around.
Yeah, we had to fix a few issues from last year. We cracked the head at the end of the year, and fuel pump wasn't right all last year, but we got that fixed for the fair. Had a cracked head, went through the fair with a little more power, cracked the head even worse. And so, yeah, new head and a few other updates, and the tractor. It's a little more tractor there this year.
Yeah, well, it's definitely showed like I said, you've got a couple of second place. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring up that first run. We lost Ray just for a second. There he's back. I'm gonna pull your run up here. I'm gonna add you all to the stage here, and let's see here.
All right, you got a green light, got a green flag.
Yeah, this was your first run on the new stage.
Now watch, he's gonna build these.
Right.
You see Dewey.
Get more, and that's at the point I knew I had more power.
So you said at that point you knew you had more power. What happened there?
I knew we had a little more power than we've been had in the past.
So and this is one thing, Ray. You can probably join in on this conversation. The horsepower of this class used to be roughly what, about 700, Ray?
Probably in the beginning, it was
So
probably
talking,
700-800 in the beginning.
yeah. So and what do we have horsepower wise now in this class? I've heard numbers of 1,100, 1,000, but roughly what do we have?
Yeah, you're right. I think you're all over it. I mean, most of the ones that I've talked to has been on the dyno have been, upper 1,000, right at 1,100. And these little box chargers, I think, talking to Brad, he had told me that in the beginning that they were capable of 1,100 horsepower, and I think that's where they are.
So and what are they doing in order to get that extra 400 horsepower? Let's say, is it fuel systems? Is it cylinder head machine work? What is it?
It's a lot. It's a combination. The charger's not touchable, so when you buy the charger from Brad, a lot of people complain about it, but it keeps people from wrenching on it. You don't have to tear up a lot of stuff. It's not like the Super Farm or the Light Pros rather, or Super Stock. It's kind of moderate on the horsepower. So the guys the combination is really everything. I mean, it takes a good pump, it takes a good turbo, it takes a good engine combination, and we tried some different ones far as rod length and bore and stroke, and the jury's still out. I don't know which one's our best one. I know which one is our best now that we have running, but that don't mean it is the best, So we just hadn't had that much research and development with the bigger bores and the smaller strokes, But we do have a few out there, and they perform pretty good too. I didn't think they would because of such a low RPM class with a high torque. I thought maybe that the long stroke would be better, more dominant, but it doesn't seem to affect it. I thought the same way years ago with the Light Pros, and we got some short stroke motors with the big bores run just as good as the long stroke motors.
So Alan, when you, like last year, you were talking about at the NC State Fair, you knew you had a cracked head going into that show. Right. And why did y'all decide to just run it anyway? What was the reason behind that?
Well, I don't know. Just because we was at the when the Sting come out the hood, in the track, we decided to park it, not run Hickory, because that was all that was broke was the head, and not any piston like that. So,
when you're hopping into it or deciding to run at the NC State Fair, and you knew that there was chance of doing more damage, why? I mean, were you planning to? I guess more or less, were you planning? Did you know you were going to have to rebuild the whole thing anyway? I guess is what your thinking was behind it.
No, we knew to have a new head. The internal parts on the motor were good, but I guess by the end of the fair, the crack in the head was worse than we thought on number 2 cylinder. And, it was pretty noticeable when we pulled it off. I think Ray's seen it.
So and let's talk about this. Let's talk about this a little bit. In this class, what's your cubic inch limit? What's the maximum cubic? 466. So, and it has to be stock casting of the block, stock casting of the head, right?
Correct.
So, as far as machine work, the only thing you do is maybe do a little buff and a little grind and get a little extra out of it.
Ray could probably answer that better than me because he does our work for that part too. Yeah.
So in order to get you've got that 3-inch turbo. What are you doing don't tell me all your secrets. I don't want to know all that. It's kind of like Brad the other day. I asked Brad, I said, Brad, are you going to go on the live? Will you go live with me? He goes, I ain't telling you all the stuff I do. And I was like, I don't want to know that. But, we talked about the combination with the turbocharger and the fuel systems, and now we're up to 1,100 horsepower. And I know it's got to be a stock casting of the head. So basically you're doing kind of like, are you doing like the old school Chevrolet, where you go in there, you grind on the intake a little bit, you grind on the head a little bit to get a little bit more out, a little more flow out of it?
We have done a lot of grinding. A few years ago, Brad and I worked really vigorously to come up with a head for the super farms, and we wanted one to run water and to be able to be competitive for the small cubes. And I looked just the other night, there was probably 40 some different flow charts where we done different flow tests, trying different combinations, and it's very hard. And then Brad, he took a motor to the dyno, and he went and bought one out west that was advertised as the best head there was. And then and we knew that our head was good, because when he got it, the motor running the best it could do, he bolted our head on it, and it made right much difference. So we were real happy there. But it's different than a light pro. I mean, you a light pro or even a super farm, you try and get all the airflow out of it you can, and swirl means a lot. And it's a small cube, and like I say, a small, low RPM, high torque. It's really hard to come up with the right combination. But years ago, we learned a lot. We pulled super farm for a pretty long time, and we learned sometimes when we had the best flowing head, those old chargers we had back then, we didn't have near good a charger as what we got now. But
right,
the head, a real good head would kind of hurt the low end torque, But a mediocre head was a little better. So,
well, Alan. So let me switch gears a little bit, Alan. So you've had some good runs. You've been sitting there in second place, and you're kind of knocking on the door. And you were talking about earlier. We were talking about before we got on air. We spoke with DJ Stevens, and that guy, I always thought he was a pretty quiet guy, because whenever he came up and talked to me, he was like, he'd say a few words and then he'd just kind of walk away. Alan, tell me a little bit more about DJ Stevens here.
Oh, DJ,
so let everybody know.
Yeah, he ain't quiet either. Him and Ed, they good people, and no, we're always going back and forth. It seemed like our tractors have been pretty close together all year. He got ahead of me one night, I got ahead of him, and we joke about it out in the pits and have a good time about it. But yeah, our tractors are pretty close, and he told me to lead the way Saturday night, and then he went and put a couple feet on me, and I said, you're supposed to stop behind me. But anyway, don't work like that. But I wouldn't stop either. So.
No, if you're going for the win, I think right now
ain't nobody gonna stop.
No, no. It's y'all are all buddies until that green flag drops, and then y'all ain't enemies, but y'all ain't the best of friends either. Y'all ready to get that win on with it. But so let's talk about a little bit about this Pro Forum class. Let me pull this up real quick. I'm gonna add something to the screen if I can get my mess together. There it is, right there. All right. Let me add this to the screen. Let's remove that, add that. So let's look at what we got right here in the hot farm. Right now, Zachy is in the lead, but now we haven't talked about Darren. You got Wyatt, you got Justin, and you're sitting down there in fourth place. And the way the point scale is, folks, if you don't understand, it is 50, 48, 46, and on down the line. So if you look at it, Zachy's lead has actually kind of dwindled a little bit, and Darren's sitting right there, pretty close. Wyatt's not too far behind, and Justin. But Alan, if you think about it, if you have two massive hooks and these guys slip up a little bit, you can be right back in contention in this real quick, especially with, we've had some weekends. What do we have, 11 this weekend? Something like that?
14.
14, yeah. So, we got a couple. In fact, it's good to see Mark Garrett. He's back with his. And so, there's a lot of stuff going on in this class. And I tell you right now, the big thing is that I'm seeing, and I may be wrong, but with the competition getting tighter, and Justin's figuring out his mojo with his tractor, Darren is just picking up, I hate to say, kind of where Justin left off. That tractor already runs good. Alan, if you could have made the first couple of hooks, you'd be right up there in the top.
Yeah, missing that first hook hurt us on the points, but we didn't have all the parts there to get it ready. And that's the way it goes. But no, she's been running good.
And Zachy, we talk about Zachy, and we kind of pick on Zachy a lot. He don't like to lose, but that tractor runs strong, and that's one thing about it. We were talking about technology, and you have different builders and different ideas, and Ray, you hit on that quite a bit. So I guess right now everybody's chasing that green one, but what is it going to take to kind of to take Zachy down a little bit? Or I'm not going to say take him down, but you know, kind of make him a little bit more even pace with everybody. Is he just on a roll right now? I guess.
Zachy's got a good hot rod, and Zachy's really learned to drive it good. So
he does a good job driving and setting it
the
up.
The combination's hard to beat. All he's got to do is slip up a little bit. Them boys on his heels.
Well, now David, his right hand man, might have more to say about the setup on that one because, but those guys, I tell you, one of the things I do remember the first time Zachy drove that tractor at NC State Fair, and I don't know, were you were running then, weren't you, Alan?
No,
you came on the following year.
It was a couple years later. Yeah, he made us go spend more money on the motor when he come out running like that.
Yeah, so Zachy, his first run, one of the first things, he's a tobacco farmer in eastern North Carolina, Wilson, North Carolina. But to give you a little heads up on it, the first run he made on that tractor, he literally walked around that tractor for 30 minutes before he ran. And I swear there was a half a field of tobacco laying on the ground. He was nervous as a tick. Alan, have you ever been that nervous getting in the seat?
Yeah, the first year I was a little nervous, but now it's pretty. I'm ready to go now. But the first year was a little nerve-wracking, but
you just never showed it like Zachy.
Yeah,
I try to be low key, try not to show it. Yeah, but I was. But the biggest trouble I have now is they make sure I turn the computer on when I go. That's why somebody's standing on the starting line every time telling me to turn the computer on because I had issues with not turning it on.
Let's go into that a little bit. Computers. Now, you obviously can't control anything, but all you guys now are running data monitors, basically, so we were talking about earlier, your temperatures are pretty even. So what are you looking at on the computer data? What do you have that you're looking at? When you download that computer data, what are you seeing after a run?
I guess for us, just making sure all the cylinders are the right temp. And Ray could probably answer better than me.
Well, all right, Ray. So I know I've seen, we were talking about Marty Harrell and the Pure Country a little bit, and depending on the vehicle, depending on how it's set up, you've got a lot of data points. And what are the most important ones to pay attention? Obviously, Alan hit the nail on the head with temperatures, but is there any other data that you're looking at to see if everything's working right?
Yeah, a lot of things like fuel pressure really means a lot. Boost pressure, you would look at the intake boost pressure, your exhaust side boost pressure, your manifold, and that'll tell you if you got something failing or something that's not happy. Mostly the computer part, it helps you tune it, but mostly to keep it alive, keep it ready for next weekend.
And Alan, we were talking, and we were all talking about Dewey. That tractor kind of smothered, and they were doing some framework on that tractor here the last couple of days since we left Winston-Salem.
Yeah, I bent the frame rails up above the front axle and toward the weight bracket. So, Dewey's gonna get it fixed and get it back going pretty quick.
Oh, I'm sure. But you were talking about the data points, Ray, and the thing about it is, you were talking about, if you're seeing if everything's happy. Well, one of the problems that Alan and Dewey were talking about that possibly could be an issue is that turbo dragging, because that tractor just kind of smothered right at the end of the run. So is that what you can see on the intake, on the boost pressure and all that kind of stuff? Could that tell you a possibility of a failing turbo?
Yeah, sometimes you'll notice one pressure. Most of the time it'll be intake and exhaust pressures will be down, and then that helps out. But I guess I didn't look at any of their data, but I imagine things like the crankcase pressure, the sensor inside just measures to see if it's got a lot of blow by on the rings, stuff like that really makes a difference, and they can foresee what's coming. And I'm sure they found some some issues with it.
I'm
But
sure if Blake finds something, he'll be letting Ray know.
Ray.
He hadn't called, so that's a good sign, right?
That's a good sign.
Yeah. Well, Ray, speaking of that, we're going to add something up here. Well, let me take this one down here for a second to bring you up. Hang on, let me turn that down. Now, the reason why that sound is so distorted is because this is actually mounted. Now, this was in, I believe, Danville or either, is that Danville? No, that's not Danville.
Looks like Danville, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Okay. So we're in Danville here. Now, you used to run a tractor called the Carolina Coinbinder, and you still got that tractor going, now. So
yeah.
And we were talking about that earlier. When are we going to see that bad boy again? Because that was.
I'm anxious to have it out. I thought maybe we would have it out this year. That was a big goal, but it's so hard when the season starts and people start having issues. And I have to, look after them first before I can work on my own stuff and keeping everybody else running. When I started that, this deal, it was really the pulling part. The reason I started working machine shop business was to work on my own stuff. It was really hard to find somebody to work on something big in our area. You can find a ton of people to work on a small block Chevy or a small block Ford, but you bring a big old tractor crank in or a block, man, they like, don't bring it here. You know how it is. So,
yeah, and we were talking about this earlier. Up in, you go to, out in the Midwest, Ohio, Indiana, you can find tons of people to work on this kind of stuff. And it's kind of, you, Brad Gautier, and Robbie Crutchfield down south here that do a lot of the wrenching, the machine work, the assembly, to keep all these tractors running. And like he said, I mean, you've heard Alan talk about it, but this is right after I think you got it put back together and you were kind of tuning it and you were running alcohol super stock. Do you have a preference, diesel or alcohol? Which one would you rather run?
The alcohol is really hard for me because, the diesel's how I learned. I cut my teeth on a diesel, and we had a antique tractor even that had a turbo diesel engine, and we'd really done good with it. And then we got into the super farm part, and we really went a long ways with the super farm. Really enjoyed it. Probably enjoyed it more than we'd have the alcohol. There's a lot of people in the country that know how to make that alcohol run and live. I just happen to not be one of them, So.
Well, the thing about it is, and this is something I've learned, helping Marty with the Pure Country, was that there's so many little tedious things with that alcohol engine. If one little thing's off, I think I don't remember exactly how many injector nozzles that the Pure Country has, but it's a ton. So if you got one cylinder, one injector nozzle not spraying or atomizing right, or your fuel pressure is a little off, or it's just like a blower motor. If the air is heavy or the air is good, you've got to adjust accordingly. And if you're off, you can really screw up something.
It's not very forgiving, right?
Yeah. So that was just one of the first ones. And you see, in fact, I believe that's Perry Walters there. That was back when the tractor was a super farm. Guys, if you're joining us tonight, let us know where you're from. I see Russell. I don't know what he's laughing about. I'm just going to put it up here. There's no telling what he's laughing about. I have no earthly idea. Maybe he'll tell me tomorrow at work. I don't know. We work together, so I probably shouldn't have said that. But anyway, and Ray, do you know a guy named Chad Sexton?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was just saying, what's up?
But yeah, if you,
yeah, okay.
He's a big sports competitor. He runs a modified 4-wheel drive truck, like slings or through the mud pits, and he's pretty competitive. And he's been to a few tractor pulls. He loves all kind of sports, drag racing, tractor pulling, truck pulling.
And that's the thing about it, folks. If you've never, and we've got new people starting to join in, it's starting to build up a little bit of steam here. But one thing that if you've never been to a tractor pull, maybe you haven't been to one in a while, folks, just come and check us out. If you want to see blower motors, we got those this weekend. We got super modified 2-wheel drives. We got pro stock four-wheel drives. That's the closest thing to a stock DOT vehicle you're going to see going down the road because they're running DOT tires, but they got big motors. There's no doubt about it. So anything you want to see. And one of the classes that I'm really catching a lot out of that I'm kind of enjoying to watch now is the classic mods. They're old school, but they put on a heck of a show. You know, those guys put on a heck of a show, which all these classes right now with a competition level, we were just talking about after Winston and some of the other pools, the light pro class right now, those, you better have your wrenches turning right. Because that class is tough right now. In fact, we were Ron Beasley, he's changing gears. He's basically taking a super stock motor and turning it into a light pro. So, that's gonna. I have a feeling when that one comes back out, she's gonna be right. And you got Kendall, and Dewey's been struggling a little bit this year, but previous years, Alan, he's been kind of, I call him Mr. Consistent. He always made a straight A to B pass. To pick up the front end, it would just sit pretty, just sit back and ride. So a lot of things change real quick. So what do you think, Alan, in the other classes? How do you feel the other classes are going to change? Do you see any big changes? I know pro farms and hot farms are kind of stuck where they are, but what do you think about the light pros and the super farms?
I don't know. The light pros keep seeming to get more power and more money spent on them every year. And I don't know about the super farms, but I know they almost look like a light pro going down the track now, the ground speed and stuff. But I think the hot farms, I think we're just going to keep seeing more and more tractors, because it's a good starter class for a lot of people that want to get into pulling, but maybe couldn't afford the super farm or the light pro.
Or maybe they want to get their feet wet too, because that's the other thing. It's a big difference between driving a hot farm and a light pro. But let's talk about that a little bit. Here's one thing I'd like to talk about: the driving. So when you get in that tractor, you hop in and you strap in. How do you leave the line? Is it like a regular farm tractor, or is it, is it something different? What is it like to leave the line with those things?
Well, for the first 2 years, Blake kept giving me a number to give off the line, and kind of got to watching all the videos y'all pull up. I'm like, all the competitors are pegging this thing wide open before they come off the line. So I think we was in Piedmont Dragway, and Dewey comes back up here. He said, "You remember what you see in that videos? Or just go ahead, get it all off the line. Do start doing that." So I've been doing that most of the year, and it seems to be working fairly well. I just think I ain't coordinated enough to leave a little bit and then go get it, but just getting it all off the line with that little charger, I think it's working pretty good.
Well, Casey Iverson, he's obviously watching this here tonight. Appreciate him joining us. Kim Truelove, Moncure in the house. So we got a few people watching this here tonight, and talking about driving styles. And Ray, I'll hop on you for a second. So you've driven the diesel tractors and you've driven the alcohol. Is there a big difference in leaving the line between the alcohol and the diesel?
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about how that is.
The alcohol is just so finicky. I mean, you've got to get a little clutch, get a few RPMs, and try and get a little boost, and then jam the clutch back in and try and get a few more R's, and when it's ready, it goes. You just know when it's ready, it pushes your foot up, and you just roll the throttle down. And the super farms are a little different. You drive it out of the hole pretty hard. Give it all you can. Depends on the track, and I'm sure the hot farm is probably about the same. Back when we were pulling super farm, I think that's been 2010, maybe 2011, somewhere along in there is when we sold the super farm, and we were probably making somewhere around 1,000 horsepower. So it's pretty amazing. The guys with the hot farms now have exceeded that. They're making more than what we did, and that was with a 640 cube engine. So, and now with the little 466 is impressive.
The super farm class. Let's jump back a little bit on that. So that was one of the things with the super farm class. They're limited, the hot farm, you have the box charger. So you buy a box charger, you can't modify the charger at all. You basically stick it on, put it in place, you're done. But super farm and light pro, let's go back to super farm a little bit. And, I've talked to Perry a bunch of times. And one of the things I've noticed, he says, I got a whole shelf full of super farm chargers trying to get that little bit of extra horsepower. So, what happens with that? Is it just kind of the latest, greatest turbo that we can get in the super farm?
There's some great turbo builders out there. I mean, Apex Charger with Ryan Salamby. He's probably got he's leading in the super farm, I'm sure. There's some really good other good competitors too, but and the cubic inch engines, we do a few super farms, and today the camshaft's a little different than what we used to run, but the rod length and crank stroke and bore combination is pretty much the same. So the pumps and the turbo has just really gotten a lot better. So
yeah, and with the fuel pumps, and this is something that maybe you can shed a little light on. The fuel that you're using, is it just stock diesel fuel? Is it like you get it out of the pump or what? Yeah, explain this a little bit.
Yeah. Most of them, if you ever been in the pits with a super farm and even the hot farms, those guys run it too. They run the biodiesel fuel, and it smells like some bad French fries or something, but it makes a lot of power, so they all run it. They every one of them competitiveness. They beg for 20 or 30 horsepower, and if you don't have that little edge, you back it up. So.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and a lot of people don't, if they're following along with us, or say they've gone to a tractor pull and they haven't, they don't see all these things in the background. A lot of the things we talk about, and we know about the fuels and the different additives, and then the water injection, which is water injection, if you see my quotation marks. There's certain legal parameters you have to have. You can't run alcohol, you can't run things like that, but everybody's trying to find a scientific way around it, I guess you can say.
And then you got to abide by the rules. So the water test has got to pass, the fuel test has got to pass. So it's kind of hard. They push it to the limit, though. Sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's trying to get that extra little bit of horsepower.
We'll have to call Zachy on that one.
Oh, Zachy.
I didn't mean it.
David's gonna text me in a minute. He's gonna be like, but what are you talking about? Nothing at all. But somebody's gonna put up a $500 protest at next time. I'm just kidding. But yeah, but see, and that's one of the things that we found out at the beginning. I think it was of last season. It may have been this season. I can't remember. All the seasons are running together. I've been doing this for so long. People bought fuel, and when they went and tested the fuel, it didn't pass. And it was just a bad batch, by my understanding. So, they had a little bit of hotter fuel than what passed the test, and they've got several different tests for the fuel and the water, and so that's one thing the tech officials are always watching out for. So Alan, do you ever worry about them doing a little spot test?
Nah, we good. I trust where it comes from.
Well, so we're gonna start wrapping this up, but here's my question for both of you. We'll start with you, Alan. Where do you see the sport, or where would you like to see the sport, especially down here? Because, and nothing against the guys out in the Midwest, but down here we sometimes don't get all the love that a lot of the bigger circuits do, And where do you see this sport? And hold on, I got to bring this up. Chad Mackey, y'all don't be stirring this shit up now.
It's all love, man.
It's all love. Everybody just messing around.
Everybody likes to pick on Zachy because he's the leader.
Everybody's gonna pick on the guy everybody's chasing. But Alan, where do you see the sport in a few years? Where do you think we need to be heading? I guess you can say. What do you think would give us a little bit more of an edge where we're seeing more, and I guess you can say in a sense respected a little bit more in the motorsports world because round track's pretty strong around here, drag racing. What do you see?
That's hard to say because it's hard to get people around here to come watch us, and I don't know. I think it's more fun than round track racing, or I think if they knew the behind the scenes part of what all it took to all the technology and the like stuff like Ray does and Brad and Blake makes ours run. I think if they knew all the time and technology and smarts it took to get them running, they would respect it a little more. But I don't know. Like I think the hot farm is good because it's a lower budget, gets brought a lot of tractors to the sport here in North Carolina where it won't before, where the other class haven't grown much lately. But I don't know.
And you got a good mixture of color in that class too. I mean, you've got what did DJ say the other day? Red and blue make green. Is that what I think that's what he told me the other day. And of course, he was talking about his neighbors having a red tractor and the other neighbor having a blue tractor. He said, "Didn't you learn that in elementary school? Red and blue make green." But and maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe this winter we need to go. Maybe take some trips and go to some of these shops and see what y'all do in the off season. Record a little bit of that and show what's happening in the background because. It's not, you guys don't just go to the pool, run it, and just take it home and bring it back out next week. Obviously, after what Dewey's doing right now. So,
I didn't know how much was involved until I started helping Dewey and Blake when they started the Light Pro. I grew up in tractor pulling, but I didn't know how much went on in making those machines run until I actually went through the shop and helped them on a nightly basis. It was amazing to me when I started.
So what's your weekly maintenance on the hot farm? What do you have to do?
Well, fingers crossed so far this year is just to check the filter, make sure there's no metal in it, and fill up with fuel and water and go again. But first 2 years, we had a lot more issues than that. But
well, and that's one thing.
Not much.
Yeah, well, that's and that's why that class I think is appealing too. It's a lot less work as far as it's still a lot of work, but it's not nearly as much as say a Super Farm Light Pro or Super Mod 2-wheel drive or some of the other classes. Ray, where do you see this sport going, and what do you think is going to make a difference as far as getting it out there and making it better?
Well, what you're doing now is really the exposure. We need the exposure. I mean, the tractors are there. I think they put on a good show. We got two organizations in North Carolina that really, either one of them put on a dang good show, and the people are great. So more exposure like this is going to help the sport grow. And people like Allen and Austin with the hot farms, we just need a few more tractors.
Well, Ray, that's your cue to call right there. You got to hurry up and get that super stock done.
You want some more business?
Yeah. Well, his prices might go up a little bit if he brings that super stock out. I'm just messing. Guys, we're gonna wrap things up here. If Alan and Ray just hang on a second, we're gonna play a little infomercial. Don't forget this weekend, CarolinaPullers.org. Go to the website. Go to Carolina Truck and Tractor Pullers on Facebook for more information, videos. There's all kinds of stuff going on. We'll be live in Silcope on Friday night just for a few minutes. We want to give you a taste, but let me tell you something, folks. If you're within an hour away, go. It's a whole lot better to watch it in person and wait until middle of next week to watch the videos. It just is.
Silcope's a great show. So
that's a family atmosphere. When I think the whole community gets behind that one, yes. Literally, I left work and I really didn't have to go, but I said, "Well, I'm going to go." I had never been. Let's go. And I got there, and man, there was nowhere to park. Everybody parked on the side of the roads. And I think some of the haulers even got blocked in with all the vehicles that had come into that place. So it's a great facility. If you've got an opportunity to go back the next day, it's all day. You get to learn about the history of farming, and you get to watch the antique pulls. And that's something to kind of show you. And we talked about this. I didn't bring this up really, but the altered form class. If you look at how the show is kind of set up right now, that altered form class shows where it started. And then if you look at the light pros and the super stocks, that's where we've moved to. So it's kind of showing you the history of the sport as far as the tractor side, especially. But guys, if you get the opportunity, go to Silcope this weekend. It's only going to be on Friday night, but hey, hang out for Saturday. Check out all the fun food extravaganza, all the stuff they got going on. That's going to be a great show. Guys, you hang on a second. We're going to play this up. I'm going to pull you guys down. We're going to play the roundup, and we will see you. Silcope, Friday night. Gates open 5 o'clock. Showtime 7:30. So tons of action. You name the classes, we got them. So here we go.